We cannot and will not forget President Biden abandoning America.
What's going on?
Disastrous withdrawal.
What's up, everyone?
It's not just Americans that he abandoned.
I'm live.
That with countries of United Kingdom.
Waiting to get live on all the channels.
They too have their own citizens
A lot of
abandoned
channels to go live on.
in Afghanistan.
I'm live. Okay, we're live. We're waiting for Jen Psaki, as always, to get started. I'm a couple minutes early,
Civilians, including children, were
but
abandoned our own
you know how I be.
Taliban stronghold and left behind.
Hope you guys are having a great day. Hope you guys are feeling fine. Really fine. As always, if you want to support the channel, go to buymeacoffee.com/Derek O'Shea Show. It truly helps out. Also, if you want to be a part of the show in any capacity, you can call this number at 720-727-7572, or you can text to this number, and I will answer the text. But we are currently waiting on Jen.
And this past weekend, we saw the starkest inflection point in President Biden and Vice President Harris.
We're currently waiting on Jen, so I have
Over 10,000 Haitian migrants
Kevin McCarthy
setting up camp under a bridge
coming in hot.
Del Rio, Texas. Their journey is a direct result of the Biden-Harris agenda that wants to grant them amnesty and a lifetime of government benefits. While women
If you are like,
faced 100-degree
if you are like, blink your eyes 2 times. I am like.
remain non-existent. Where is the border czar? Vice President Harris.
I am so like right now.
Tomorrow will mark the 6th month
All right, we're live. We're live on Rumble, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, Facebook. Did I say them all? And Rumble. Don't forget Rumble. Shout out to Rums, as I like to call them.
control of the border. 900
Stay Rums, my friends. We're waiting on the Sakis. Get in the chat. Let me know how you're thinking, how you feeling, how you feeling, how you thinking.
consecutive months, illegal migrant encounters hit more than 200,000.
Kevin McCarthy talking about illegal migration, as always.
4,000
Live. I'm totally live, Tiger Man.
seas since.
I'm super live right now. I'm so live.
So if you're a city on the border, you think that's far away.
Stay live, my friends.
Fentanyl comes to every element and every city in America.
This is about as loud as I can get this guy.
Congressional Democrats on Capitol Hill have been just as disconnected from reality. They're intent on making these problems much worse. Instead of addressing the
So
concerns
getting my
hurting our
stuff
economy,
set up.
stability, they are moving ahead with passing a massive $3.5 trillion spending bill, along with another trillion added upon that. Raise taxes, harm the middle class, and increase the inflation they have already created.
You're a lying dog face.
Businesses, all while handling tax breaks.
Come on, man.
Democrats control every lever of the federal government, but they are acting like powerless.
Come on,
bystanders.
man.
All right.
The lame
Just
duck
making sure my stuff works. AZ audit coming out tomorrow.
concerned about her last
Will anything
real
happen from those audits?
getting a $200 million
I don't know.
earmark for her own
I think Republicans, I think we
Instead of bringing
should
Americans
focus their
home
time
from
less on the
Afghanistan.
audits and more on
border
mail-in
is
ballots
your position to save this
and
country,
making people go in to
creating an
vote,
economy.
making that be the priority of the next election.
American cannot continue down this path. We
But
need a Biden-Harris administration.
let me know your thoughts.
congressional
Guacamole
Democrats
Kid.
To fix the nation's problems as opposed to worsening them than the ones that they have already created. I continue to listen to the Democrats on the other side of the aisle. Never before did I
Don't you
think
wish
I'd see the
Kevin maybe had
administration
some more
leave Americans
charisma
behind.
or something? Dude's so
Never
boring.
before did I think I would see the Democratic Party literally pull out funding for Israel because they couldn't even pass it
Right.
for defense
Duh.
of an iron.
The numbers are ridiculous. Yeah, I'm sure they are.
Every
I
single
just-
Democrat
I-
voted no in the concept. Of
I just don't know what can be done.
It is a different time and place in our nation. I've never seen a majority party fail time and again.
It's a real clown show watching Biden making another bad mood after. Yeah, it really is bad watching.
Funding bills.
Joe Biden has been easily one of the worst presidents I've ever seen in my life. And the press is on his side. So
Yes, ma'am.
there goes that.
Are you encouraging your members
All the swing states will just... will dissert,
No,
don't you think?
Don't view it as a
Dissert?
bipartisan bill
Dissent?
any longer, where the Democrats have now made it one
Dissert?
over $5 trillion bill.
Discern?
One without the other. It only harmed the nation even
Dissert.
more. I'm voting no.
What about your members? Do you encourage them to vote no too?
Yes, I do. Yes, ma'am.
Dissent?
Sure.
McCarthy? A lot of the things in this bipartisan infrastructure bill are things that your members have backed in the past and are popular at home.
Yeah, this is as loud as I can make it.
Constituents, even in your district,
It's like,
could get millions of
can y'all
dollars
turn up a little bit?
for roads or broadband. About
No,
why you're
you
voting
get-
no.
Oh,
Because
I
you
love
don't
those
get
questions.
millions of dollars for roads and broadbands.
What? Don't you don't like roads and broadband, Kevin McCarthy?
Bigger socialist, big government. You give
Oh,
harm
so
to
you're
our
telling me there's
economy
more about the bill?
and
Does anybody have time to read that whole bill?
roads being
No.
built. We had a bill that went forward.
They
that
need
had the opportunity to build more roads,
are you guys with
invest
me?
money, have the reforms to get
Every
done.
bill should be written on one
That's
piece of
the
paper.
deal. Yes, sir.
If you can't write it, then it's over bloated and it needs to be thrown away. It's like a resume. You don't want a 3,000 page resume. You want a one page.
How will you respond
So you can
to
read
the
it.
subpoena, and are you advising your fellow members of Congress that could face subpoenas as to how they should respond?
You know, I haven't received any subpoena, but it just goes to show.
Still waiting on Jen.
This is more about
The minute she
politics
comes on,
than
I will
anything else.
switch
There's only
over.
two questions that this committee should actually be looked upon. Why was the Capitol left so ill-prepared? And how can we make sure that this never happens again? But that's not what they're focused on. Yes, ma'am.
On the debt ceiling, Republicans do not want to help Democrats raise the debt ceiling. You guys voted against.
Was she
the
Obama's
CR.
press sec?
The debt ceiling
No.
was suspended in. It
Yes.
looks like Democrats are. It's going to be a process for them to get this $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill through, which is the argument.
This reconciliation, this freaking $3.5 trillion bill.
The debt ceiling needs to be done by mid-October.
The debt ceiling.
How are
What are you guys'
we
thoughts on the
not
debt ceiling?
responsible for, a financial
Kind of like-
crisis caused by not raising the debt ceiling?
It's like you don't want to go through a recession because it sucks, but at the same time,
It's perfect because they
you
can't.
you can't keep spending money
Democrats control the White House, the Senate.
because then that makes the recession worse.
They want to raise $5 trillion and spend in the next month. You have a
It's
maxed
funny to
out
hear
credit
Republicans
card,
talk
they
about
wanna get a new
spending.
limit to go max out another one. In reconciliation,
You guys have been
within
doing the same.
Senate, they have
She
the
was-
ability to
she was
carve
spoke-
out just for
Right.
a debt ceiling to vote.
There it
They have
is.
a
Thank you,
hard
Tiger
time
Man.
doing that on their own because it may harm them in raising all
Jen's
that money.
she's a joke.
They are in the majority. They control what comes to the floor. So they have wasted all this time. The only people
Jen
that will
Psaki
get
went on
any blame for
vacation
this is the Democrats and their management.
during the
It's
Afghanistan
crisis
debacle,
after
so
crisis.
whatever.
From the border to Afghanistan to now putting our debt into crisis.
Yeah, our debt is
Why would they
completely
move a
out of
bill that they
control.
will not pass? And they even took out the Iron Dome funding in it.
But
to
at the
try
same
to
time,
get those liberal
Republicans
people to vote
aren't.
for it.
They're
They know it's not
pretending
going
like
anywhere in the
Democrats.
Senate, So why did they waste that time?
They
Why
do the
did
same
they
thing
take
though.
the time to wall off the reconciliation.
We need
debt
to
ceiling,
have
pass it in the House,
a reckoning.
Pass it in the Senate, so people in America would not
Soon.
be harmed because they cannot manage. That's the only answer to the question. Yes.
Americans
Just
are
to
gonna
follow
care.
up on that, the Treasury Secretary was just.
Nasera and
with this speaker.
Gesera? I have no idea.
Conversations with her.
What is that?
Point, is there anything that can change your mind?
See, I'm one of the few YouTubers that will say I don't know.
I'm not going to.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know everything.
$5 trillion in the next month when we have inflation and small businesses being hurt.
I don't know what that is.
The Democrats
And I don't have
control
time
the
to Google
House,
it.
The Senate and the White House. The Democrats have a mechanism already in place to use reconciliation.
5, 10,
to
and
pass
20
it
will
with a
become a
simple
coin in the
majority
way
of
they're
voting
spent.
members in the
Yeah,
Senate.
it really will
Want to
become a coin.
raise and
If
spend
not,
another
if
$5
it's not
trillion.
already.
That's what they need to do.
I mean, minimum wage is so high right now.
What they're doing
Everyone
is
thinks like minimum wage raising is a good thing.
and others. I've
but that
worked
just tells
with
you
Secretary of
If
Treasury
minimum wage is high, then you're gonna have to pay
That's
more
the
for meat. You're gonna have to pay more for gas. You're gonna have to pay more for the
Democrats
tacos at your taco stand. They're no longer gonna be $2 tacos. They'll be $5, $10 tacos.
Why did the speaker spend her time in Europe?
But yeah, the high school kid can make
Why
more
do they
money.
only have us back here for 2 weeks when they know this challenge is before us? Why do they make it to the last minute to make it?
The whole point of an entry level job is that it's entry level, and you want to stay there and work there and grow. Amazing.
If they want another $5 trillion of spending,
I've worked a lot of entry level jobs because I've changed careers
Very
lots of
clearly.
times.
Secretary
It
and I
sucks.
Had a very good discussion.
But
We've been through this before. I was
what are you gonna do?
pretty whipped when we passed it the other time.
And also the
Conversation,
$5, $10, and $20 spending coin. That's why they hate
Stop
Bitcoin so
playing
much.
Political games with this. Don't take us down this path.
They
Start
can't control it.
working
They can't
on
regulate it.
legislation. Don't waste another
They
week
can't
like we
overspend
wasted
it.
this week.
They hate it
the
so
CEO
much.
was not going anywhere. They
And
knew
that
it.
should
He knew it on the phone as
be a
well.
trigger to anyone.
Yes, ma'am.
The federal deficit through the first 11 months of this fiscal year was 2.7 trillion.
Are bills that were passed but implemented concerning returning to the gold bag standard and reforming courts. Oh,
Not if they continue to add
that would
another
never
5
happen.
trillion.
If we could go back to the gold standard, that would be
Our
incredible.
GDP is about 23. You've got a real challenge.
Many people think
Today's
that's
society has
that's when
collapsed
America
and
fell.
extended themselves.
The minute we came off gold standard.
This is exactly the path that the Democrats have
I don't know what you.
focused on.
Let me know what you
Inflation
think about
they've
that.
Created with their spending when first coming into office, continues to contribute.
I swear,
to this
if they just
harm
like
that'll
move
cause for
this
business and growth, and for future generations of Americans,
this
putting it as a path,
White
will
House
do a great
schedule.
deal of amount of damage.
the White House
I remember
schedule.
listening to a number of years ago, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff said a greatest
Yeah, okay.
threat to our nation
Still says 10 o'clock.
wasn't a foreign enemy.
They like to randomly change it on me.
Nothing but add to it.
Leader McCarthy, but if most of this debt,
Quantum system?
98%
Yeah.
of it predates President Biden's
Not true.
inauguration, why don't Republicans have the responsibility to help raise the debt limit?
That's a
Can you
great
guys hear
question.
the reporter asking questions?
Let me educate
Seriously, I have it all the way turned up.
Was on a date certain, not a
It's
dollar.
ridiculous.
So the date certain, every amount of money spent in the Trump administration was accounted for, and also went into the 7 months of the current Biden administration. The reason why we're raising.
You think it's actually being implemented?
Debt now is because
I would love to see that happen.
$5 trillion. So for every family member at home that's sitting in
I wish they
tough
would just
situation that they're spending more than
Do a
they're
Bitcoin
they're
or
using all their
go
credit
all in
cards
on
to live
one
off
coin.
month after month, and the credit cards have now hit that limit. What they're now asking
I
is,
remember
can we
a
get more
$1
credit
would
cards
get you
to
burger,
max
fries, and
out?
smoke. Yeah, the $1
That's what
meal,
the
dude.
Democrats are doing.
I grew up on that
They're
junk.
making
That's
it a
why
big
I
problem and
have a weight
situation.
problem.
They control the House. They control the Senate.
Oh,
They have a mechanism.
dude, I miss the
They're
dollar
utilizing
menu. I just like
to
to
spend
order
another
so
$5
much.
trillion. In that mechanism also allows them to raise the debt ceiling with their own members. That's what they would have to do to make that happen.
I don't think people
believe
are
it's
ready
smart
for a
Americans to
recession.
spend
I
another
think
$5
we're so
trillion.
weak
I'm opposed to that. I would think most everyone,
mentally as a country at the moment.
especially the next generation.
I think a recession would maybe spark states to secede from each other. I don't know. What do you guys think?
About the Archdiocese and the Archbishop
Nothing.
of San Francisco warned that this bill is nothing more than a child
Because there are definitely some states that
passed to defeat the bill.
way overspend compared to other states.
Like the pro-abortion agenda.
What the Democrats are bringing before us, it's really a radical bill. It goes beyond Roe v. Wade. It allows abortion on demand up until birth. It shows how far left Democrats have become. 219 Democrats, I believe, have
The
co-sponsored
$1 burger and
it. They have
fries.
abortion up until
The U.S. became a corporation with the Act of 1871. We
Regardless of
signed
how
and
you feel
control,
about the situation,
signed
that
control
is
of
not
our
the place.
financial system over to the bankers to assume. Yeah,
They're going to spend their time pushing that onto the floor, putting
Yeah.
American economic in doubt when they should be dealing with the economics of what they have.
Leader McCarthy, back to,
It's like you say you're going to be at a 12 Eastern time, and then you don't show up. These people are killing me, Smalls.
There were 19 Senate Republicans who did vote for that, including Leader McConnell. Have you talked to him about your decision to recommend voting against this?
I talk to
or vote
McConnell
for
all
the
the time. People have difference of opinion, but the one thing I think everybody
Mitch
now
McConnell
sees
is
what the bill passed in the Senate is
a
a different
J-O-K-E.
situation now than it came to the House.
We
Every single
worldwide was
Democrat
meant to
you can ask
reverse
them
the
close
U.S.
on
in
down.
control and
That
undo
is
the
one bill.
maritime law controls.
So
Are
you're not voting for a
Interesting.
$1.5 trillion infrastructure bill, you're voting for a $5 trillion bill. But they
I'm not even sure I know what that means.
They have their internal firing squad
feel like
right
that's
now
something I need to
upset with
research.
each other because one
Would
side
undo
won't
the
vote for
maritime
it
law that
unless they get
controls our courts?
reconciliation. So whatever agreement they come upon is not about the infrastructure bill.
You got me
It's about
there.
whether they can spend $5 trillion.
I don't know how old you are, guacamole
That's
kid,
different than what they saw in the Senate.
but
they are planning
if you're under 12 and you're saying this stuff, incredible stuff.
If Pelosi keeps her word.
If she keeps her word.
Will she send it to the White House or will she
Ah,
hold it
man,
at the
we are
desk?
just
Because she's talking
chilling.
about holding it as well. And the progressives on the other side, on the Democratic side, said they won't vote for it unless she will. So, interesting.
Mr. Leader, there's at least four Republicans who have indicated they'll back
Maritime law is basically legal in them. is legal mumbo jumbo that traps people into giving their rights away.
What is your message to those who are
Is that giving their rights? Is that something
Well,
like
yeah,
on the
it's
Joe
a-
Rogan
it's a
podcast?
different
This
situation than it
latest
was when
one.
it came out of the Senate.
I swear it was like
you
something
watched
about that. About
The so-called
the
moderate
guy thought
Democrats
that
put a letter
censorship
together with 10 names
that did the
that
QAnon
they would not
documentary.
approve reconciliation until they got
Do you
the
guys listen to
infrastructure
Joe?
bill, and in
I just
48
assume
hours they
everyone does.
collapsed and didn't get the infrastructure bill, and not only moved
Joe's
to
like the
giving
male
them
version of
reconciliation,
Oprah.
they deemed it where you couldn't even debate.
Every guy listens to it,
They've
whether
been
they
speaking to a lot of those members at the
say
time,
that they do or not.
change their opinion of whether they should support that bill or not. I don't view it as a vote for infrastructure.
You give a lot of rights away the minute you just turn on your phone,
And I don't
too.
believe America can afford that now. And I don't believe it's the best when we have inflation. We have
Lord.
a border that's out of control. We have Americans held hostage in Afghanistan.
Still waiting on Jen.
And we have a White House ignoring every crisis before him, but only trying to create a new one.
Why do we have a White House ignoring every crisis? Because a man was voted in that has terrible credibility. If you notice the legal, some AC terminology and a bill underwater. Okay. The doc was full of crap. Yeah, I haven't watched the documentary. I kind of want to watch it just to see. I just assume it's hyperbolic. Every time I see those people do documentaries on like QAnon, I'm like, all right, now do a documentary on Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Oh, you won't? Okay. Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, there goes PBS. Does that mean... Yes. No? Sorry, guys. I'm trying to make this more fun. There we go. Here we go. Party. That's how you know I like to party. All right. Let's find some other news source to watch while we're watching. News. Oh. Heck yeah, here we go. This is a live show, people. We're doing our best here right now. I'm here for 25 cents. You can get a burger, fries, and Coke. That dog was full. Yes, you do. When you turn on your phone and drive your car. Yeah, turn on your phone, drive your car. There goes your rights. It's not a crisis. It's a planned strategy. Everything, anytime you hear the word crisis, like I said in my last podcast, it should make something go off in your head. Q's main message was not to do anything rash and pros and handle the situation. It encouraged legal and proper ways. Yeah, there was that part, and there was a whole other part too. I don't know. There's a lot of SHIT posting on forums, but here's Jenny. Here comes Jed. Come on down, Jed. What did you win today? Frank, you won an all-exclusive Jen dog. Come on down and claim your dog, Jen. Oh, that's just stupid. Q's main message is not to do anything rash and let the pros and cons handle the situation and encourage the legal proper ways of changing things. It was a sting of the election. Where do you think Lindell got his data? Don't know. Don't know. All I know is... Oh, Jen's here.
All right.
We'll never know what I think.
Today, NEC Director Brian Deese and Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo will host a semiconductor supply chain convening to discuss the ongoing global chip shortage, the impact the Delta variant has had on global semiconductor supply chains, and the industry's progress toward improving transparency and trust across the supply chain that both produce and consume chips. We use semiconductor chips constantly in our everyday lives, and the participants in today's event will be representative of that, including those from the consumer electronics industry like Apple
Is it Three
and
Stooges,
Microsoft,
NPR,
the automotive
MSNBC, and
trucking
CNN?
industry, including General Motors, Daimler, and BMW, and firms that
I'll be here all
support
day.
agricultural and infrastructure equipment. The semiconductor shortage has been top of mind for the president since he took office. But we also know we must also rely on the industry to take steps to minimize the impact the shortage is having on U.S. workers and consumers, including providing greater transparency. We will continue to work with Congress to fund longer-term solutions, something we've been working hard on to expand and strengthen domestic manufacturing capacity for chips and strengthen the federal capacity to address supply chain resiliency. And we're also working with partners and allies to minimize the impact disruptions overseas have on the U.S. economy. Here we've been working with foreign governments in Southeast Asia and elsewhere to keep critical factories up and running while taking appropriate COVID precautions to support the local public health response and worker safety. Why don't you kick us off?
Thanks, Jen.
All
Two
right.
questions.
Holy
both on
crap,
budget.
that's loud.
One, Senator Schumer, Speaker Pelosi came out and said they have agreement with the White House on a menu of options to pay for the agenda. Senator Manchin, Senator Sanders have indicated they don't know what's on that menu. Can you give us some details about what is on that menu and maybe like a rough range, maybe specific options, anything that shows that this is progress?
Well, first, Josh, we certainly think it's progress, and it builds on the president's meetings.
Progress,
we had
love that word.
Yesterday with leadership, with moderates.
Progress!
Forward in an effort to unify members of the Democratic
unify,
Party
that's a good one.
and shared objective of lowering costs for Americans and making the tax code more fair. As Leader Schumer saw, I know you followed it closely, but for others, as Leader Schumer said, I should say, he conveyed what has been agreed to is a menu of options that will pay for whatever the agreement on the investment may look like. And so it's a menu of revenue raisers. Now, I think as you may understand, it's important to have those discussions with the range of important leaders, including Senator Sinema, Senator Manchin, a range of members, about what those menu of options of revenue raisers look like. That's exactly the process that's going to happen over the short term. So I'm going to let that play out before I detail more from here. I would otherwise point you to Leader Schumer's office.
Okay. Secondly, I know you don't want to negotiate from the podium.
I typically try not to.
Exactly. But are there any items where there is unity among Democrats?
Unity!
Like with regard to the child tax credit, universal pre-K, is there anything where you can say, we have agreement that we want these programs at this level?
Well, I think what's important to note here, and you gave me an opportunity to do this, is there is broad unity about the importance of, again, lowering costs for Americans, whether it's childcare, elder care, the cost of college, cost of pre-K, that's all part of the discussion. Child tax credit, there's broad agreement that we need to do more to address the climate crisis. There's extensive proposals both in the infrastructure package as well as in the reconciliation package. A big part of what we're talking about here, which is not a secret to all of you, are the size of the package, right? There are a range of different viewpoints on that. That's part of what
How
the discussion
big is that
and that will certainly
package?
impact as as we look toward how we're going to unify moving forward. Go ahead.
Thanks. So following up, I want a few follow-ups on the budget. I'll
Sure.
ask about Haiti too. So am I hearing you say that the White House at this point is okay with any of the financing options that are still on the menu?
Well, our bar has always been from the beginning nothing that would raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 a year, and certainly we wouldn't support anything that would. But this again is a menu and a range of options. It's an important step forward, a sign of progress. But there's no question there's a lot of work ahead that will proceed over the rest of the day and the days ahead.
But the president has greenlit all the choices on the menu we're talking about.
Again, yes, but it's a range of options, and the next step is to have a discussion with a range of members about the path forward.
And then on Haiti, we saw the U.S. Special Envoy, Daniel Foote, resigning. He had strong words. He said he would not be associated with the United States' inhumane, counterproductive decision to deport thousands of Haitian refugees. Why would DHS go ahead with a plan against the Special Envoy's advice?
Well, let's take a step back here for a moment. I would also first note that the State Department put out a statement on his resignation. He was obviously an employee of the State Department and, of course, of the administration. First, I would note there have been multiple senior-level policy conversations on Haiti where all proposals, including those led by Special Envoy Foote, were fully considered in a rigorous policy process. There are disagreements.
I do need
in policy
some clips
processes.
of her.
The president welcomes that. The Secretary of
No,
State
no one's
welcomes
gonna ask her
that.
about the audit.
That's certainly a part of having discussions and having robust discussions about
I don't
the
think
best
so.
path forward for difficult circumstances. Some of those proposals were harmful
Peter
to our
Ducey's
commitment to the promotion of democracy
your only hope of that.
in Haiti. I'm not going to detail that further. I will let the State Department do that should they choose to. But I would note that Special Envoy Foote had ample opportunity to raise concerns about migration during his tenure. He never once did so. Now, that wasn't his purview. His purview was, of course, being the special envoy on the ground. His positions were, and his views were put forward. They were valued. They were heard. Different policy decisions were made in some circumstances.
But it's not just him. We've heard from Democrats on Capitol
There we
Hill,
go.
too, who say they're really against these mass deportations. The White House still stands behind the mass deportations. You still view them as humane?
First of all, they're not deportations. People are not coming into the
They're
country
inhumane.
through legal methods. And again, our policy
Yeah, I
process
did see
has
that
continued to
Veritas
be
clip.
the same with Haiti as it is for anybody coming through for the irregular
I don't know why
migration
these
across
people
our
keep
border.
falling for
I
Veritas
note,
people.
as I did
They get them
yesterday,
drunk and then they
that
get them
as
saying
we've
stupid
applied
crap.
our border
It's so awesome.
restrictions, as we've applied
But
our
also
immigration
scary as crap.
policies, there were more than 90,000 people who departed the country, who attempted to cross our border in the month of August. That was even before we saw the horrible photos that we saw of people gathering under the bridge. There is a process that is in place as people, whether they're coming from Haiti or any part of the world, goes through. Go ahead.
Jen, we haven't yet heard recently from President Biden specifically about these images on the border. You have described him as saying that they're horrible, but what does he believe of the comparisons being made between his administration and the Trump administration? We saw Congresswoman Maxine Waters just today saying this is Trump's policy. Several other Democrats are saying this looks like the previous administration. What does he think of those comments?
Well, what our role is, and what the president has
Whoa.
asked his outreach team, members of his national
Really?
security team, Homeland Security team to
I haven't
do,
seen that story.
is to explain clearly what our policy is and what our policy is not. We could not see it as any more different from the policy of the prior administration, which the president feels, we all feel, was inhumane, immoral, ineffective, wasn't operationally working, and because of the dysfunction of it, we have led to a very broken system that we're dealing with today. So what he has asked all of us to convey clearly to people who are understandably
So you just call it a broken
questions,
system and
are
we could do whatever we
passionate,
want.
are concerned as we are about the images that we have seen, is one, we feel those images are horrible and horrific. There is an investigation the president certainly supports, overseen by the Department of Homeland Security, which he has conveyed will happen quickly. I can also convey to you that the secretary also conveyed to civil rights leaders earlier this morning that we would no longer be using horses in Del Rio. So that is something, a policy change that has
You gotta
been
stop
made
the
in
horses.
response. But separately, all related, it's also important for people to understand what our process and our immigration process is and what the steps are that are taken. We are still under Title 42 because we are in a global pandemic. So we are still
Yeah.
operationalizing that. If people are not expelled under that, then there are a range of options. Either
I know
they are,
1.2 million
put
people
into
came across the
an
border, but
alternative to detention,
we're in a
where
pandemic.
Biometric data is required. They are required to. They are given a notice to appear, or they are given. Or they are put in an ICE facility. This is the process that is ongoing and has happened for every other migrant who has attempted to come irregularly across the border.
If I could ask one follow-up on the budget. What is it about the nearly 5 hours of meetings yesterday that gives President Biden hope?
Well, I think what gives
5
him hope
hours.
is that there is agreement about the need to do more to address costs for the American public, whether it's childcare, elder care, the cost of college, pre-K. There's also agreement that there's more that needs to be done to make our tax system more fair. There are important discussions, and certainly there are differences of opinion on what the size of the package should look like. Those are important discussions, but he felt encouraged.
There's that package
by
word
how
again.
constructive the conversations were. he's going to have his sleeves rolled up, and he'll be very engaged moving forward.
Rolled up, what will be happening this afternoon? Who is he planning on meeting with here at the White House?
We're still finalizing specifics, but I think there'll be members who we're working to see if there can be meetings at the staff level at this point as a follow-up to yesterday.
At the staff level, but the president will not be meeting with lawmakers today.
We'll see, Jeff. The president's always open
on,
to
Jeff.
meeting with, discussing, communicating with lawmakers, but as is yesterday is evidence of, but he just met with a broad range of members yesterday. There's a lot of work that needs to continue that can happen with senior staff members, but I don't think anything has been finalized quite yet. We're happy to keep you updated if it does. Go ahead. And I promised I would jump around today, so after you all
Jump up,
around
jump
and
up, and get down.
After yesterday's meeting, Senator Manchin said that the president was very straightforward with he and other attendees about what he expected of them. And that the president said, just give me a number that you can live with and what you want. But the progressives have been so clear about their number. Does he have any reason to believe they're willing to come down from 3.5 trillion?
Well, this is what a negotiation looks like. This is what compromise looks like. And ultimately, the president also wants to see a robust package that will help lower costs for the American people across the country.
Yeah.
We need the votes to get that
That's why we
forward.
shut down
That
the
is how
pipeline.
process works in Congress. This is
Thank you.
democracy in action. So his role yesterday was meeting with a range of voices, hearing from them on what they're excited about, where they may have concerns, and trying to help be a unifier in moving the process forward. It wasn't that it ended yesterday. There's a lot of work ahead, which will proceed over the days ahead.
He does think they might come down.
We'll see. He's always believed that there would need to be a potential for compromise, would need to be what everybody would have to be open to.
Yes, Guacamole Kid, that is 100%
Are
right.
you doing anything to expedite the process of finding Foot's replacement, given the situation in Haiti?
I don't have anything to report out to you on kind of what the next steps are there. What I can reiterate to you is we have an ambassador on the ground. We have a robust presence on the ground. We have a newly installed assistant secretary for the Western Hemisphere, all of whom have experience in the region and will certainly be overseeing the policy at this point in time. Ken, want to go ahead?
Just one more. Just one of his concerns that he laid out in this letter was that the Haitian government is expressing an inability to provide for the migrants that are returning there because of a lack of basic resources.
Okay.
DHS has said vaguely that the U.S. will provide support for those people, for the Haitian government to absorb deportees. Can you provide any specific details about that support?
Sure. Well, first, let me say
Money, as always, because we're all about printing.
We are working with the International Organization on Migration to ensure that returning Haitian migrants are met at the airport and provided immediate assistance. So that's in the most immediate. In terms of the range of assistance we've provided, let me just give you just a quick overview of what we've done sort of to date.
Thank you.
U.S. agencies led by USAID recently provided an additional $32 million in new assistance to support earthquake response efforts and humanitarian relief. This funding builds
Here's
on the
32 mil
USAID
here.
disaster
Here's
assistance
32 mil
response
there.
teams. In January, we announced
Yeah, you will.
$75.5 million in bilateral development and health assistance for a wide range of issues for Haiti that we're still working with them, of course, on to deploy. That's a large amount.
I need to have like a
of money.
Peter chant
So
before he
I would
starts
say we're
speaking.
continuing to provide a range of
Peter.
assistance, but the recent
Peter.
$32 million is in response to the earthquake that happened over the summer. Go ahead, Ken.
Just on the infrastructure package, just having had these lengthy meetings yesterday, does the president think the House
Seems
should
kind of
focus
delayed to
on the
me.
infrastructure
I'm just gonna refresh it. It seems like delayed to me on my stream. I don't know if it's delayed for you.
The president's going to work closely with leadership to determine what the next best steps are.
He also may need Republican votes. Does he intend to bring House Republicans over to talk about infrastructure in the next few days?
We're really
Sorry.
deciding day by day on what
See
can
you
be
guys.
most helpful and
Live show.
constructive to moving his agenda forward, which includes each of these pieces of legislation. So right now, I don't have anything on the books, but
Try
we're
my
again
best here.
deciding day by day. Go ahead.
We're about a week away from the end of the fiscal year, and we understand that today's the day the administration is going to suggest, well, instruct agencies to develop contingency plans for a funding lapse. I want to ask specifically about agencies within HHS, the CDC and the FDA. Years ago, in 2013, when there was a government shutdown, Tom Frieden, who then led the CDC, described that period of time as one of the worst in his tenure at the agency. 8,000 CDC staffers, he said, were furloughed. Do you expect a similar dynamic to play out if there's a shutdown this year in this pandemic, or will there be different instructions to those?
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Well, we are taking every step we can to mitigate the impacts of a potential shutdown on our pandemic response, economic recovery, or other priorities. The fact is, shutdowns are incredibly costly, disruptive, and damaging. Direct public health
So is
efforts
passing
we
bills that we don't
generally
need.
during a shutdown because they're exempt, and that is certainly our intention. And large
imagine
swaths of the
that.
federal government coming to a screeching halt would certainly not be beneficial to pandemic response. But we are doing everything we can to mitigate. I'd also say on the first part of your question, it's consistent with long-standing practice across many administrations for OMB to simply remind agency senior staff of the need to review and update orderly shutdown plans. This is not formal guidance being given. It's just a reminder we're 7 days out and we need to be prepared, of course, in any event of any contingency. So we see this as a routine step and one just to be prepared in any event of what could happen.
Theoretical, but would the administration be in support of, let's just say, a cutout, a CR just for Health and Human Services or other departments that are critical to the pandemic response?
I don't think I'm going to speak to that, Steve. Our objective here, there is a CR that passed. There's a debt limit that passed. Raising the debt limit that passed the House, the Senate can ask to raise both of them and to ensure there's funding for a range of government programs. Go ahead, and then I'll jump more to the back. Go ahead.
Thank you.
My first question is on Haiti, and then I have sort of a bigger
Sure.
picture question around that. But should the administration have been more prepared for these people to come, given the political unrest there this summer, then the earthquake
And maybe
in
Biden's
mid-August,
words.
given how conditions were
Surge
on
the
ground
border.
even before all of that, and then
Surge
kind
the
of
border.
The second part of it is that the Border Patrol Union has been saying that they had some warnings within the administration as early as June that they were expecting an influx, not of Haitians, but of other migrants to Del Rio, and that they needed more resources there. So did the administration
Surge the border or
not
whatever.
act on those things? Were those not widely disseminated concerns? And then, just kind of on the conditions in Haiti, like, couldn't the administration have expected that refugees were going to show up somewhere in these weeks?
Well, there's a range of factors here. It's hard to really gauge what percentage, or I can't attribute at this point what percentage each of those factors are. Obviously, there are challenging circumstances on the ground in Haiti with the government unrest, with the earthquake. There are also a number of smugglers who are taking advantage of this, and we've seen that over the course of the last couple of weeks. Certainly, we're aware of that reality. We've seen that in other parts of Central America as well. But that's something that we have no doubt has contributed to a rapid influx of people who were told that they could come into the country and everything would be fine, when clearly it's not. So all we can focus on at this point is what steps we're taking now to ensure there is an orderly and humane process, to ensure that people who are there are treated with dignity, that they're going through a process of being considered for the range of options, and that's what our focus is on at this point in time.
Sort of related things or not. President Biden ran on a promise to use government to help people and that he would be able to wield the powers of government effectively. But we've seen on a range of issues, whether it's the pandemic, immigration, Afghanistan, some missteps or places where the government trying to do its best hasn't necessarily been good enough.
There we go.
What do you say to a voter who might be saying, I thought Biden was going to know how to run this government, but now we're looking at a potential government shutdown and a default on U.S. debt?
That question is fire.
Every president is elected to weather storms and navigate crises, and they come to every presidency. And if you look at all of the things that you loaded into that
Just say
question,
Biden
all
sucks.
issues that are
Come on,
happening,
man.
of course, currently, the president has been clear that he wanted to end a 20-year war in Afghanistan. He did exactly that. That's something I would say the American public broadly supports. We've certainly acknowledged that there are aspects, of course, of how it was handled or how all of the events transpired.
Yeah,
that were
Monday
not,
morning,
what we
Monday
had
morning
planned for.
quarterbacking. Is that what you're
I
going to
would
say?
on other issues, we are doing everything we can to prevent a government shutdown and planning to prevent the impact
'cause that's the
that
bad
we've seen
thing.
in the past.
Not this
that,
stupid bill.
has been quite devastating on different components of government. We're right now in the midst of trying to get a historic package that's going to address a lot of issues the American people care about across the finish line. And making policy is messy, so we're right in the middle of that. So I would say to anyone who
Stay messy, my
feels that
friends.
way, we're in the middle of navigating and weathering storms and dealing with crises. That's what a president should do. That's what an administration should do. We're not going to shy away from that, and that's what people were electing
strong.
to get through. Go ahead.
Also on Haiti, building on Jeff's question, I mean, when you have Maxine Waters saying that what these images and this policy harkens back to the slave trade, I mean,
oh my
you're
God.
saying here that you're trying to communicate
Don't forget
what the
to,
policy is. She and other Democrats who are your allies in other political projects are criticizing that very policy. Isn't this a larger problem, a political problem for the president than just merely communicating what the Title 42 policy is?
It's not just about the Title 42 policy. I think Congresswoman Waters and others, as are we, have been horrified by the photos of the Border Patrol officers and that behavior. And we have taken very specific action and launched
Protecting the border?
ending
Imagine.
a part of a policy that the Secretary of Homeland Security felt was problematic.
Why are you guys
There has
doing
also
that?
been
Let
a
them
view that
in.
We were handling our immigration policy in a different way than we were handling for other migrants across who were coming
Such
across
a
the
weak
border.
nation.
That's not true. And so
That
what
that's
we've been
seen
doing
as
is trying to explain
inhumane.
what our policy and our process is and reiterate
You
to
can break the
everyone
law
that
if you
our
want. Just
objective
come on
is not to
in.
keep the policy as it is.
God, it would
which
be
is not
racist of me to
which is
stop you.
broken, which is not workable long term, to work with people who are frustrated to put in place a new immigration policy that is humane, that is orderly, that does have robust asylum processing. But we've also reiterated that it is our objective to continue to implement what is law and what our laws are, and that includes border restrictions. Go ahead.
Jen, in the spirit of explaining policy, can you explain how the administration is determining who gets to come in and get processed under Title VIII and get an NTA and who's getting expelled? On the ground reporting suggests that it's based off demographic, not racial demographic, but if you come in as a family, single adult, what have you. How is Border Patrol determining right now who actually gets to stay in and get processed and who gets expelled under Title 42?
Sure. So across the border, including in the Del Rio sector, we continue to enforce Title 42. Families and single adults are typically expelled under this CDC directive when possible. The determination of who can be expelled or not is determined by a number of factors, including the makeup of the specific family unit. Some people with kids who are younger than a certain age are not accepted back in certain countries. We know that from our immigration policy writ large, long before the last couple of weeks. And agreements with the country origin and as well as agreements with the country of origin or last residence. As you know, and as all of you have reported, this is not just a case of everyone coming directly from Haiti. People are coming from different countries, some where they have lived for periods of time. Family units are different, and so each is made on a case-by-case basis. Another determining factor is detention capacity, both within ICE and CPB. And so, as we have stated, those who cannot be expelled are placed into removal proceedings and issued a notice to appear, or when capacity issues and processing backlogs arise, they may be processed via an alternate means, which requires them to report to an ICE office to commence the next steps in their immigration proceedings. That's how the process works.
DHS thus far has not given data on, specifically in Del Rio, of those who have been processed under Title VIII and those who have been processed under Title 42. Is there any breakdown that you can provide on?
I think they did provide yesterday, and I think they're going to be providing
grand
regular
finale.
updates, and certainly this is something that is under their
Peter's
purview.
just getting
As
warmed
you
up.
Noted
He's swinging the
that
bat.
the department has conducted 2 repatriation flights yesterday. I'm just going to give you a little more information than you asked for, but just so everybody has it, with a total of 318 Haitian nationals on board. These flights will continue since Sunday, September 19th. 12 repatriation flights have left the United States. 1,401 Haitian nationals have been returned to Haiti.
Out of 10,000?
3,206 Haitian nationals have been moved from the Del Rio camp to CBP custody or to other sectors of the United States border to either be expelled resolved via Title 42 if possible, or placed into removal proceedings. Sometimes it requires a discussion in order to determine the path forward. Then, therefore, there remain less than 5,000 migrants in the Del Rio sector.
Can I ask about police reform as well? Obviously, reports that those talks are dead. What's the White House strategy now moving forward to try and
less
rein
than
in
5,000? She's like celebrating
that.
that.
The readout yesterday mentioned working with Democrats both in the House and the Senate. But what's the strategy also for the White House to work with Republicans as well, who did ask for more concessions when it came to these negotiations?
Well, I spoke to this quite a bit yesterday, but I'm happy to speak to it again.
Please.
Part of our objective is to communicate and work with a range of members, activists, and others who've been involved in pressing for reform, something the president strongly supports. That includes the consideration of executive action, and certainly includes considering whether there is a path forward legislatively. Obviously, we just saw those talks break down just yesterday, so those engagements need to resume, but those are really the next steps in the process. Karen, go ahead.
Thanks.
Thank you, Karen.
Getting back to the Monday potential vote on infrastructure, you had said in response to Ken's question that the president's working closely with leadership to determine what the next best steps are. But what has he indicated he thinks the next best steps are? Is he looking at Monday as a hard deadline, or would he be okay with
Shout out
that
to Ginger
vote being
Karen.
delayed by a couple of weeks?
Again, he is somebody who has been through this process quite a few times before.
These questions
and,
are boring.
He is going to work in close consultation with leadership. That's when the vote.
Let's get some hard-hitting
is scheduled.
questions.
We don't have any information to suggest that has changed, but our focus right now, and really his focus, is on finding common ground, working together to unify the caucus and the party around a path forward.
And to follow up on that, and what you had said earlier about there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and the president sees himself as a unifier in this process moving forward, does he feel that he has to sit down in the same room with the moderates and the progressives? Yesterday the meetings were separate. You explained why, but does he think he needs to have all of those stakeholders together to actually move this process forward?
We're going to determine day by day what the right next steps are. So yesterday he had meetings with a range of voices, some who had different points of view. That's part of who we are as a Democratic Party, part of democracy. And we'll determine day by day what the best next steps are. Today I think it's follow up on a staff level.
A middleman then, if he's hearing from the moderates.
These
and then
questions
passing
are
that on to the
terrible.
progressives.
He's not the only.
Does he feel
they're
like he
talking
needs
each
to
other
talk
as
to other
well.
people?
So this is just his role in hearing from all of them and playing a role that he can to unify points of view and find the next best paths forward. Go ahead, Yamiche.
Thanks, Chad. A couple of questions on Haiti. The first is the president has often used his bully pulpit during the most important times in his administration. Why is he not using that bully pulpit to speak out forcefully himself on the treatment of patients?
I would say, Yamiche,
Come
certainly
on, man.
I've represented to you all his point of view. His point of view is also reflected in the actions that have been taken through the administration, including the investigation, including the change in policy. The Secretary of Homeland Security oversees these efforts and has been quite outspoken and quite visible on what steps we should take moving forward. And he certainly may still speak to it. Obviously, there's a lot of events happening here, including the UN General Assembly, COVID, and others, and I wouldn't rule that out.
Respectfully, I just have a couple more questions. Everyone else got questions in. Respectfully, I understand that you are the spokesperson for the president. These are images that are traumatizing Haitian Americans that he promised to treat respectfully and with humanity. Why isn't the president telling people himself these images that people say look like slavery are wrong? Me as president, I as president, condemn them. How is he not doing that?
They
Why
look
is he
like
not doing
it,
that?
or are they?
What are people supposed to take away from the fact that he's not at the bully pulpit himself talking about these images?
Yamiche, I think people should take away that his actions make clear how horrible and horrific he thinks these images are, including an investigation, including a change of policy, including conveying clearly that this is not acceptable and he's not going to stand for this in the Biden-Harris administration. Our actions make that absolutely crystal clear, as have our engagements with a range of voices, a range of concerned advocates, members of Congress, and others who we want to communicate with, not just about our horror, but also about what our immigration policy is moving forward.
Also said in his letter, he called the U.S. policy inhumane, deeply flawed. Does the president believe anything in this letter that Daniel Foote is saying? rings true, has some sort of point that he believes is true?
Which aspect?
It is inhumane. We're just allowing people to walk in.
The policy toward Haiti inhumane. He said that
he wasn't specific in his letter. What I noted earlier before, let me finish, Yamiche. What I noted earlier before is that we have taken very specific actions as it relates to the horrific photos that we're not going to stand for in this administration. I don't know if he was referring
She
to
is
that
looking
or something
annoyed.
else. That's
I
why
love
I
it.
raised the point.
Let's turn up the
Let me
heat.
finish, Yamiche. His purview.
Yamiche,
was
turn
not
up the
about
heat.
migration.
Even
He
though I
didn't
disagree
raise
with
his
you, turn up
concerns
the
about
heat.
migration
Let's get some
privately.
explosions.
We respect his point of view, respect his ability to bring forward concerns, to raise ideas, to raise proposals. That's certainly something the president welcomes from everybody on his team, and something that he had the opportunity to do in a range of meetings. We also have to make decisions here based on what we feel are going to help promote democracy in Haiti, including Haitian-led reforms, Haitian-led steps on the ground to make changes in the country.
A number of people who say that he did raise concerns over the deportation of Haitians and the treatment of Haitians. Are you saying then that Daniel Foote is not telling the truth in this letter?
Have conveyed clearly in their statement what I just said.
I promise. Yeah. The last question is Daniel Foote, the former special envoy to Haiti. He's raising this idea that the U.S. should be listening to Haitian civil society, not backing the current prime minister who was not elected by the people. What's the president's response to that? Because those civil society members have been telling me and other reporters for months, even before the assassination of the president, that President Biden was not listening to the people of Haiti about how to move forward with their government.
Oh, President Biden's racist.
Process charting the country's course through the current political situation. We don't back any one political group, and we continue to encourage all political stakeholders to engage in dialogue and find solutions together. And that has been our objective through all of our policy process making throughout the course of this, in addition to providing a range of assistance, training to people on the ground. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. A couple questions on COVID. One having to do with masks and airlines. About a little more than 4,000 incidents reported of unruly passengers. Senator Dick Durbin.
These unruly
has
passengers.
said that fines don't appear to be working. Now we understand they just doubled, but they don't appear to be working. He's calling for criminal charges. Would the administration support that?
That's not a policy decision we made. We obviously just announced the doubling of fines last week, and we're hopeful it will have an impact on people,
triple the fines, quadruple,
behaving in a safer way on flights.
More is more.
COVID. When it comes to people who are resistant to vaccines, not hesitant but resistant.
Right.
Outside of mandates, is there any discussion going on?
I'll let you
Prison time or anything we could
About
do.
messaging and how to reach people.
Yeah.
Who would just
'cause
say,
it's messaging.
I'm never going to take that vaccine.
Right. They need
Is
more
there a
celebrity
new approach being
messages.
discussed outside of the
Right.
policy that's going to be new rule through the Labor Department. I should be more
Thank
specific.
you.
Yeah. So, I think if we go back to December, only about 30% of people in this country were willing to take a vaccine.
Like
Now
Joe Biden
we're
and
at
Kamala Harris?
Over 75% of people
Wow.
who have received at least one dose. So clearly, there has
So
been
let's move
progress
on.
made in addressing people's questions,
He would blow
addressing
darts.
hesitancy
She
or
wants to blow
resistance,
darts.
whatever it may be. And we've taken a range of
Pooh.
steps, not just
Shoot.
the announcement made just
Can I
last
have
week
another
about
one?
mandates. Prior to that, part of that has been relying on local messengers. Part of that has been making the vaccine broadly accessible to everybody in the country, making it as easy as humanly possible
already
to
is.
get vaccinated.
It
and
already
we're going to
is.
continue to deploy those tactics as well.
It
because
already
we've seen
is.
them as effective, and we've seen them work in a range of communities.
These people,
getting us to a point.
if nothing's
of
working,
over
we're going to do the
75%.
same thing, but do more of the same thing.
Sure. So yesterday,
Genius.
the president in his remarks mentioned working together with partners to increase global vaccine capacity, including this upcoming meeting with the Quad. But one thing that he did not mention was anything about supporting the TRIPS waiver or waiving the patent technology at the WTO, which many experts say will be the game changer in terms of boosting global capacity. So is this no longer a priority for the administration?
Well, he supported the TRIPS waiver. Excuse me, it's a process.
God bless you.
being led
COVID.
By our
Get her.
Let me
COVID.
finish. Our ambassador.
COVID.
It's an ongoing process. We said from the beginning it would be a lengthy process. I have not seen many advocates say this is the silver bullet and the thing that is going to provide everybody with vaccines.
All
around the world.
experts said
It's
that.
something the president supports.
All of them.
We support in his administration, and there is an important global process that is ongoing. What we feel our role is also is not just providing, as the world's biggest provider of vaccines to the global community, more than every other country combined, but also working with our Quad partners.
She's the denier.
To
She's the
to produce
supplier.
At least 1
Everyone
billion
knows
vaccine
that.
doses. Boosting vaccine manufacturing in South Africa to produce more than 500 million single-dose regimens in Africa for Africa, ensuring we're increasing
Vax gun
capacity around the world
Yeah.
and increasing and sharing.
It's gonna be like the Hunger Games all over again.
Know-how with the global community as well. All
Let
of these
the
steps are essential, and certainly we continue to.
Let the unvaccinated run for their lives. We will find them.
Migrants at the Texas border to Guantanamo. But there's still conflicting media reports about this. Can you definitively clarify
Guacamole, thank you for putting the in front of science.
migrants
It's
at
important.
the border to Guantanamo?
We will not. There's never been a plan to do that. I think there was some confusion related to the Migrant Operations
Take your time.
Center, which has been used for decades to process migrants interdicted at sea for third country resettlement. This request for information that went out publicly yesterday, which I think caused some confusion because of the timing, was posted in a typical routine first step in a contract renewal and unrelated to the southern border. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. I have a question
Here he
about
comes.
the numbers that you gave and the math. So there are 15,000 migrants
Peter.
on the Del Rio Bridge Saturday. If you add up the ones that you say were expelled or released, it's less than 5,000. Say there's 5,000 that are still left. Where's everybody else?
I'm happy to get you a more fruitful rundown for you, if helpful, from the Department of Homeland Security.
Okay.
At a certain
when you
time.
talk about how some of these people are being placed in removal proceedings, that does not mean removed, correct?
That means they're in the process of going through a removal proceeding so that we can
Decide if we wanna
go
keep
through
them?
The process, our immigration process that's long been in
Say
place.
We understand that basically most of these people that are going into removal proceedings are being put on either buses from Del Rio
Yes.
to El Paso and Laredo, or being flown to Tucson with no COVID testing unless they show symptoms. How is
Oops.
that helping anybody stop the spread?
Again, we have a protocol and process in place as it relates to COVID in terms of testing and quarantining, and also vaccines are provided for a range of migrants by our
Peter, you
partner
got to do better than that.
organizations
We
in
need a
the
better
region.
question.
What is happening now is that, as I outlined yesterday, is that
It's too easy of a
individuals
question.
cannot be expelled under Title 42. They are placed in removal proceedings, as you referred to. That may require them being placed in ICE detainment facilities, or it may require being given a notice to appear, where biometric data and other data is taken. In terms of their transportation methods, I'd certainly point you to the Department of Homeland Security.
But why should somebody, say, in Laredo, Texas, or El Paso, or Tucson, Arizona, have to have their chance of catching COVID go up because hundreds of miles away there's an open border?
Well, there certainly is not an open border.
Oh,
We are
sure. Just
continuing
walking
to
across.
Employ our immigration proceedings and process and restrictions at
Doing
the
a great
border,
job.
and that includes the implementation of enforcing Title 42, which is an authority, a public health authority. It includes moving people into either a process for
Jen.
expedited
Come on,
removal
man.
or removal
Thank you.
proceedings. That is our immigration process that we are proceeding underneath.
You're a
You
lying
say
dog
the
faced
border's
pony
not
soldier.
open, but we're told by our teams on the ground, you guys are releasing pretty much all family units, couples where the woman says that she is pregnant, or single women who say that they are pregnant, and that nobody actually has to take a pregnancy test unless they want to. So
Are you suggesting you don't believe when women say they're pregnant? Is that a big issue? you think?
Okay.
I am not
Oh
in
my
charge
God.
of
Got you
the border.
in your face, Peter.
Do you,
You
think
guys are.
pregnant women
Right.
are posing a big threat to the
Oh
border?
my
To
God.
the border communities? Is that a big
Answer
issue?
the question, Jen.
I'm not aware of pregnant women being a big issue of concern to people. at the
Oh,
border.
Peter,
What
you
I
let
will
her
note
take
for you,
it.
Peter, is that, as I said earlier, there is a process. If people cannot be expelled under Title 42, for a range of reasons. Some of that is because countries they came from or other countries, including Mexico, may not be accepting families with children under the age of 7. They are placed in
Are you
removal
afraid of
proceedings.
pregnant
Those
people,
removal
Peter?
proceedings require them to either go to a detention facility or require them to go get a notice to appear, and including providing their biometric data and otherwise, so that they can be, we can ensure we know where they are, and we can ensure we know when they're going to come back. So that's what the process is. If there's a big outrage about pregnant women, I'm not tracking it.
Don't let her.
Pregnant women.
Thank
The
you,
issue
Peter.
is,
Fix
Is
it.
the border open or is the border closed? Because
Thank
my
you.
understanding is that a lot of this is happening on this side of the border.
I think you know the answer to that question, and I just conveyed clearly that we're implementing our border restrictions, including Title 42, including making clear that people who are coming through irregular
Restrictions.
migration, that this is not the
Right.
time to come, and they will be placed in removal proceedings. Go ahead.
Hi, Jen. Yesterday, Minority Leader McConnell and Senator Scott held a
Well-
news conference in which they essentially argued Democrats control the White House and both chambers of Congress, so it's completely on them to raise the debt ceiling. Do you have any response to that? And does a debt ceiling fight, does that complicate the president's ability to get his agenda passed and deal with some of these other crises he's handling?
Well, let's just
He's
take a step back.
created.
So
Don't say
the
he's
same
handled. Created.
Republicans, including Leader McConnell, or former Leader McConnell, no longer leader,
Come on.
including Senator McConnell, who felt during the Trump
Major burn there.
administration that we could absolutely not risk defaulting. That would be devastating to our economy. I can provide
Right.
you the quotes. I have the receipts. He, at the same time,
I
feels
don't
that
disagree
way.
with
They
her.
all feel that way, but they are refusing to vote to increase the debt limit. So what are we doing here exactly? They are playing with the faith and credit of the United States Treasury. This is not a game to the president. This is our
Right.
economy. This is
We
not
must
about
continue
partisanship.
to
This is
raise
about
the
doing
debt.
What has been done 80 times in the past and raising the debt limit.
If you do it
including
80
3
times, you
under
can
the
do it
last
more.
administration,
Makes it
even
okay.
after $2 trillion in Trump tax cuts that were unpaid for were passed. So that's my comment on that. What was the other piece of your question?
Does that complicate your ability, if you have to have a debt ceiling fight, and we're going to have the economic turmoil that those fights bring on, does that complicate the ability to get some of the other things that you're working on done, reconciliation package, dealing with COVID-19,
Use your words.
dealing with border, all of these things?
Sure. Well, I would say in terms of the legislative agenda, our ideal would be for the Senate to vote and pass the CR that included raising the debt limit that the House passed earlier this week.
Freaking
Let's move
autocorrect.
on. Let's do what we've done 80 times in the past.
That's
Let's
right.
ensure that people can have confidence in the faith and credit of the United States. That would be our
Brandon.
preference. So certainly spending time on that, having people worry about whether the government shut down, which we're working to prevent, having people,
Who cares?
businesses,
Shut the government down. You
economic
guys are doing a
experts,
crappy
the
job.
American people worry about
You guys
the
need
debt
a
limit.
break.
That's not our
Look at
ideal.
yourselves in
We
the
think
mirror.
We should be able to avoid that, and certainly that would allow more time to move on with the rest of the agenda, whether it's confirming nominees, getting the rest of the agenda passed, whatever it may be.
One question on the border. You mentioned yesterday that the agents involved in the videos, they've been placed on administrative
Yeah.
leave. You've laid out the policy changes. What repercussions, though, once an investigation
Yeah.
is completed, could those agents face if it's determined that they had committed wrongdoing? Would
We
they
want them to be in
fired?
prison
Would they
forever.
be transferred? Can you
Put 'em
just
with
talk
the
about some of
unvaccinated.
repercussions that after we get past the leave and the investigation?
Sure. Well, the Secretary of Homeland Security made clear
He doesn't
wants that
sign bills,
investigation to
Tiger
be
Man. He
completed by
signs
next week,
executive
and part of
orders.
That process will be determining what happens on a
Those are
personnel level,
bills.
also on a policy level, even though he
According
conveyed
to him.
today one of the policy steps.
If you
that will
can't
be
push a
taken.
bill
So
through,
I'm-
you just
I'm not
sign
gonna
an
get into that
order.
process. That's why the process is in place, and I'm sure once it's completed, we'll have more to say. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. Help us figure out something about the travel restrictions. So,
Okay.
starting in the beginning of November,
Yeah.
people from 33 countries.
33
for instance,
countries.
Iran, where 15% of the population is fully vaccinated, or Brazil 39%, India 15%. And then we look at Canada. 71% of people are fully vaccinated. and
Canadian
still the border
speaking.
will remain closed. So obviously, it's not a
People can fly from Canada, right?
Yes, but they can't drive through the border. I mean, it's not easy to drive from Iran or from Europe.
That's
but
so
it's
true.
much easier from Canada.
Fair point.
70% of people
Yeah.
are fully vaccinated, so it's not a health decision. because if it was, we would, I mean, Canada is within the first 15 countries
Canada,
fully vaccinated.
I can't do a
in the world.
Canadian
So
accent.
it's
Well,
not health decisions.
land restrictions, which as you know, have been renewed through,
Ain't happen.
through I think about October 21st, but we're continuing to evaluate and make policy decisions. I would say that it is a health decision by requiring vaccinations, and we wanted to do it in a way that was equitable. So people who are
Equitable!
they would be able to come to the United States through that.
I
Land restrictions,
apologize.
I don't have an update for you on where that stands beyond it's been extended. We're continuing to consider additional steps.
And what kind of an impact?
Okay, thanks everyone.
Oh, that's it. Oh, Hunter Biden question didn't get answered. Son of a gun. We missed it. Peter, you had the opportunity to ask the Hunter Biden question. You decided not to. Freaking Fox News. You failed again. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the live stream with Derek O'Shea and the Jen Psaki-ness and everything that entails what she brings to the table. Don't forget to call this number or text this number, 720-727-7572, to be a part of the show. Be a part of the show. Be a part of the revolution. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. My new segments are coming out soon. Look out for that. And as always, guess what? I freaking love you. All right. Look out for my show. It's coming out soon. Love you. Bye. Welcome to the Derek O'Shea Show, where we discuss culture, news, politics, and more. Sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the show. Be sure to tell your friends and family about the revolution.